You know, it could be a fun idea if during my editing process, if I just take all of the filler words that you use, the ums and uhs, and just compile them into some sort of supercut. Maybe that would be fun. Maybe I could find a way to use that in an episode.
Am I still saying a lot of filler words?
Yeah, man. Yeah, maybe I'll try to find a way to integrate that into this episode.
Hello, De Niro Nation. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another episode of Our Hero De Niro, the only podcast that is recapping all of Robert De Niro's films in random order. I'm Mike, joined as ever by my co-host, Mike.
No relation.
And today we are going to be discussing 2014's The Bagman, starring Robert De Niro. At risk of, repetition from a discussion that I don't remember explicitly, but I'm sure we had when we rolled this movie last week. You ever heard of The Bagman before doing this podcast, Mike?
Absolutely not. I defy anyone out there to have heard of this film prior to listening to this podcast.
It's so funny. You know, it's like you start doing this podcast and it's like, we looked at the just information about Robert De Niro's filmography, and it's like, okay, there's like a little over 100 movies. You know, that makes sense. Not surprising. He's been working for a long time. But it really is fascinating. It's like you've only heard of half of them, you know? Like the number of films that he has done, I put done in air quotes because he's been in, is staggering. You know, it is staggering just the number of them that no one has ever heard of. And this is certainly one of them. So as I said, this is a 2014 film. It is actually starring John Cusack. Robert De Niro is in it. He's a very important character. He plays the villain, but he is not. He's not in it much. He's more of an off-screen presence, kind of the domineering force behind some of the stuff that's happening in the film. But when he is in it, he wears really cool outfits and he has a really silly hairdo. His hair in this movie is like, I don't know. I think it must extend above his head, like between 2 and 3 inches. It's very puffy. It looks unlike I've ever seen his hair in any other context. Has his hair ever looked like this before in any other context you've seen?
No, it's great. It's like a blowout. It looks really fun. He's a very quirky villain.
It's fun. Yep. So just a quick housekeeping item before we get started, in case folks don't remember from the previous episode, we are switching roles this episode. So something that Mike and I have taken note of over the past few weeks as we've been reflecting on our experience doing this podcast is just the rhythms and kind of natural roles that we've fallen into. And this sprang forth from an argument that Mike and I had during the score, like 5 or 6 weeks ago, whenever we did that episode, about whether it was more normal to notice apparent foreshadowing and let that guide you toward an expectation of the way the narrative was going to end up, or whether it was more normal to just turn your brain off, go full cat's eye marble mode, totally smooth brain, and just enjoy the film for what it is. And I think enjoy is it's an apropos word to describe the experience of watching the score. It's not a very apropos word to describe the experience of watching The Bagman. And then last week, friend of the pod, Andrew, loyal listener, wrote in asking us if we thought that we could play each other's roles. My role being the more thoughtful watcher, and Mike's role being the more smooth-brained cat's eye marble.
Your role being the guy who takes 3 minutes to explain a very simple conceit for today's episode. Jesus Christ.
And so we are switching roles this episode. I'm doing the recap, and I tried my best to watch this movie and just not try at all to figure out what was going on, what was going to happen, etc. And spoiler alert, it wasn't very hard because this movie's nonsense. Although there was a way that it was hard, and I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on this.
You need to look at the microphone.
Doesn't matter. I'm watching the levels. It doesn't matter.
Great.
I feel like there is a lot of stuff in this movie that feels really contrived, and the way the contrivance feels is like it is suggesting that there's something afoot here, that like all these pieces are going to come together. And I was a little bit hard for me to ignore that when I was trying to take myself out of the mindset that I usually watch films in. Did you take note of this while you were playing my role? Did you feel like there was like a little bit of like a clockwork kind of like thing being put together? Not effectively, but just a lot of seed sowing in the narrative.
What is your question? Were they setting
did
things
you feel
up
like
for
this
later?
was an interesting movie to do this challenge with?
Yeah, okay. Here are my thoughts on this exercise. Thank you for setting it up in the longest-winded way possible. I hated doing this. I hated watching a film this way. I hated trying to watch a film the way that you do it. I found it really detracted from my experience of what was already a pretty terrible movie. And I wasn't successful. It was mission failed because this film is trying to be clever and quirky, like a discount Tarantino kind of knockoff. But what it all builds to, like the climax, the dramatic reveal, is so, like you said, it's nonsense. And there was just no way. There's no way I could have seen how it was going to end. I will try to interject with my more critical thoughts, but I was trying to stay one step ahead of it. And there was just no meat on the bone. You know, I was just gnawing at these bones that had already been picked dry. There was nothing left for me in terms of sustenance.
Yeah. Really beautiful story. It's thought-provoking. It's got a lot of compelling characters. I think we should just get right into it. I think we should talk about The Bagman.
Yeah, this should be an hour-long episode. This is one of those movies.
I completely agree. There's really not much to say here. So the film starts, and we have Robert De Niro. He plays a gentleman named Dragna. Robert Dragna, very original first name, and he is meeting with John Cusack, who plays this guy named Jack. I think they're on an airplane, right? I didn't write it down, but I think they were on an airplane.
Yes.
In this opening scene, and Dragna, Robert De Niro, is explaining a job to Jack, and the job is just to get a bag. And Jack is like a big time hitman, really expensive dude, usually kills people, really good at what he does. And Jack is very confused about why Dragna is hiring him, this like top of the top, like, criminal dude, to do this extremely simple job of getting a bag. And one of the only fun things in the entire movie happens here in this scene. Robert De Niro does this incredibly like overblown, exaggerated demonstration of what it will be like to get the bag by like playing around with food on his plate and like trading like a fingerling potato French fry for like a broccoli. Like I think the broccoli is supposed to be the bag and the potato is supposed to be the money that he's going to give to Jack for getting the bag. And I remember I was watching this and I was like, okay, this is cute. Maybe this will be pretty good. But this is actually the high point of the film right here. So it peaks really early. It's some funny Robert De Niro stuff. So that happens. Jack agrees to do the job. And so then we cut. The job has happened. John Cusack, he's driving his car, Jack, and he's got the bag. He stops at a phone booth and his hand is bleeding. He calls Dragna and tells him that the guy from whom he was getting the bag tried to kill him, shot him in the hand, but he dealt with it. And so he's got the other guy's body in the trunk of his car. And the trunk like doesn't close for some reason. He's like keeping the body in the trunk of a car that doesn't close. So a cop drives by as he's trying to bury the body, but she doesn't stop. But because the cop drove by, Jack was unable to dispose of the body, so it's still in the trunk of his car, and he heads to a motel. He goes in, he talks to the proprietor of the motel. Guy's a total fucking weirdo. First point to observe here, everyone in this movie is so weird. And so I really struggled. The fact that everyone in the movie is so weird was definitely a major contributor to my struggle playing the smooth brain role watching this, because when you see like all these people, they're acting so weird. I feel like what it suggests is there's like some kind of conspiracy going on, like everybody is acting so suspicious. But I really didn't consider that, as hard as it was for me. Did you consider that in your more kind of measured, diligent analysis of what was going on in this film?
Well, no, because a couple of things here. One, you skip past the De Niro face reveal time. That was 1 minute and 2 seconds.
Go ahead.
It's okay. It's only our 22nd episode. Another thing that I want to share here. I hope I remember to include these little tidbits. Did you read the Wikipedia page for this film at all?
No, I didn't.
So I didn't until after I watched the film, and it's actually incredible because there is a plot summary that is clearly written by a disgruntled viewer of the film. So it is the sassiest plot summary for a film I've ever seen on Wikipedia before. So when you mentioned that
elderly
scene,
gangster Robert Dragna.
Well, you're kind of fucking killing me here. Like I'm trying to, you're just like cutting me off. Why would you do that?
What do you mean? You could have just kept talking.
Anyways, I was hoping to
You make
share
it
a
so
few.
much worse by
Oh my
reacting to these things that I do that throw you off. You could have just ignored it and kept talking, and you could have muted it in the edit, and I would never have remembered that I said
It's
something.
important to let you know in the moment when you do these things.
Sure.
If I'm setting something up, why would I want you to cut me off? You're actively
We are just
pulling it up.
participating in a conversation.
Oh my God. Yeah, then let me finish my fucking sentence in the conversation.
Oh my God.
Anyways, well, it doesn't even fucking matter now.
You want to start
Whatever.
the bit over?
Oh my God.
The bit that would have been totally fine if you just ignored me and just kept going?
Whatever. I'll move to the next part that I highlighted. Don't worry, I screenshotted the Wikipedia page and highlighted the relevant parts on my iPad. So when you mentioned that intro scene or that first scene after the airplane where Cusack has been shot in the hand and has a corpse in the trunk, the editor who wrote that plot summary wrote, when Jack acquires the bag and a henchman of Dragnus shoots him in the hand, not shown on screen due to budgetary reasons. I love that. It's like this. You didn't set up much about the film, FYI, either. Listen, I'm not trying to take over your, I know you're doing this without a critical eye or anything, but this was directed by some no-named guy named David Grovick, who has like no information available about him. And this film made like $450,000 at the box office. It made effectively nothing. Like this might have been the final nail in like John Cusack's theatrical release career. You don't think that's like an important thing to say in like the first 10 minutes?
I guess you haven't really seen him in a while, right?
His career really took a nosedive after like 2012, I think, like the movie, not the year. And I think he's been in a lot of direct to like straight to VOD trash. So this is, I think, a real low point for him and De Niro.
It says.
Well, I think it had a theatrical release, right? It made money at the box office.
Yeah, it doesn't.
How would it make money at the box office? It had some sort of limited release.
Listen, it doesn't say that it was direct to VOD on the Wikipedia article, but it doesn't say anything about the details of its revenue on the Wikipedia article. And if you go to John Cusack's filmography, this film is described as direct to video in the filmography
Interesting.
table. Maybe that's what it made from like, a few hundred people buying it on iTunes.
I don't think it works that way. That wouldn't be the box office return.
Is that true? Are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure, man. They like
So they don't
they
include,
tally that
like,
stuff up, and it's not included in the box office.
So anyway, this is where we meet the first weird person. You didn't even fucking answer my question.
What was the question?
Did you seize in your analysis on how weird everybody is in this movie? Like every character other than John Cusack is like the weirdest person on earth.
No, because this is a subgenre. This is like a micro genre of film in the wake of like Tarantino. This is one of the funny things about De Niro being in this garbage is he has been in an actual Tarantino film. He's one of the stars of Jackie Brown. So in the wake of those Tarantino films gaining popularity in the mid to late 90s, there are a lot of these quirky, offbeat sort of crime films that were successful to varying degrees that try to be very like clever and quippy in their dialogue and have twists and MacGuffins like there is in this film. Some of them work, like Lucky Number 11 with Josh Hartnett. Others, like The Bagman, not so much. So no, I don't think there's anything like particularly notable about that. That is just the type of film that this is.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, listen, I've seen some of those films and I don't agree, right? So like you got the proprietor of this motel. He asks so many weird questions. He has so many fucking questions to ask Jack, and he's got all these forms he needs him to fill out. He tries to insist on like calling the hospital because his hand is bleeding, which is like so suspicious, but I ignored it. And so he assigns John Cusack's character to room 6, but Jack has been instructed to stay in room 13. So he insists on room 13 and goes to the room and puts the bag under the bed. I noted one thing here that really made me laugh. He's wearing this hat that has
Cusack,
Memphis on it. At a very steep angle, like it's like a very weird angle for the word Memphis to be at, and he also has the bill of the hat bent to the exact same incredibly unusually steep angle as the word Memphis, and I just thought it was a very like interesting costume design choice. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone wear a hat with a bill bent as dramatically as he had it, and it seemed like he must have intentionally bent it to the same angle as the word Memphis. It was really strange.
It feels like Cusack is just wearing his street clothes in this film. He's just wearing like all black and like a blazer or jacket or something and this baseball cap. You know what I thought about here, because I'm trying to watch this film critically, was already this plan makes no fucking sense to me. So one, when we see Cusack and De Niro in the beginning, in the first scene of the film, setting up whatever the plan for Cusack to retrieve this bag and wait overnight in the motel. They're on a plane when they're having this conversation. They are mid-flight. So where are they going? They're going somewhere together. So like, why does Cusack have to wait all night for De Niro? Aren't they in the same city or like area? 2.
Sure. These are good questions.
When Cusack is talking to the hotel clerk, he's like a guy in a wheelchair with long hair and a weird Southern accent, played by Crispin Glover. You know, the plan is for Cusack, it's like, okay, you get the bag and you get room 13 and you stay there overnight. But they didn't like prepay for this room in any way. So there's no guarantee that that room is going to be available. So like, what was the plan here? It's just like pure luck that the room would be available. And so this is where I wrote, what's the twist going to be? Because like clearly there's going to be some sort of twist, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, it just seems like De Niro's really fucking stupid at this point, but we'll see how it plays out. Very boring scene.
But you remember what the twist is, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, I remember what the twist is. Yeah, I remember.
Because like that's the point I'm making. Is like it does foreshadow the twist. Like the fact that everyone and everything is so weird does foreshadow the twist. It doesn't do it well, but like you still didn't do it.
No, because I don't think it does.
For the week,
I don't think it does. I don't think it does. I think it is stylistically, I think this is a Tarantino knockoff. So it trying to be quirky and funny and falling flat to me is not an indicator that it is like foreshadowing the grand twist with that dialogue. I think it is just trying and failing to be funny. And it's going to try and fail to be funny a lot over the course of this film.
It certainly will. Did you laugh at all during this film?
Oh, God, no.
No. The closest I came was during the fingerling potato broccoli scene, but it certainly didn't make me laugh. Like I just thought it was kind of cute. It's a funny De Niro moment.
Yeah.
He's good in this movie.
Sure.
He's the best thing about it, easily.
I agree.
Yeah, it's like not even close. Yeah. So now he's gone to the room, right? He's put the bag away and he heads out and he meets a hot blue-haired lady. She's got a name. I think it's like Rivka or something, right? Is it Rivka?
I think it might be Rivka.
I just called her hot lady every time I described her.
I called her the
Rivka
lady.
Is her name?
Actually, I called her hooker.
She's
sorry.
The female lead of this film. I mean, I use the word call girl. I tried to be a little bit more respectful with my nomenclature.
I respect that.
So he heads back to talk to the weirdo motel proprietor, tell him that the phone's off, and they have an argument about whether he can have the phone on with cash only because he doesn't have a credit card. And I wrote here, what the fuck is up with this weirdo asshole? I guess I should be watching the scene, not trying to anticipate whether this guy's weirdo behavior portends some significance he'll have to the plot. So they have this whole argument, and he eventually does give him the phone access in his room. And then he meets another person on his way back to the room. I think this is a little person, right? Is this the person he meets? I didn't describe it. He asks him for a match.
Yes.
They have like a disagreement about it. Yep. So we're meeting all the weirdos who are like at the hotel now, right? He goes back in and he gets a call and he says, that's fine, I'll be waiting. And then he gets the bag and the handgun and he's getting ready to leave. And then another weirdo, stops by his room and asks him for a corkscrew. And he says he doesn't have it, and the guy goes back into the room next door. And so Cusack walks over to the next door room, I think it was room 12, goes in and kills the corkscrew guy and an accomplice who he was with, and it turns out they were cops. And I wrote, what the fuck is up with the Carnival of Freaks at this at this motel? Like, what is going on here? Like, to your earlier comment, we're only like 12 minutes into the movie. Like, all this shit that makes no sense happens so quickly, like right at the beginning, and it's like, what is this story? Like
there are a few comments I want to make here since I was watching with such a critical eye. So this bald guy knocks on Cusack's motel door room and asks for a corkscrew. And like, have you ever stayed in a motel? No.
And I wondered, actually, in my notes, I haven't written it yet, but I did wonder, like, is this what it's like? Have you ever stayed in a motel?
Only once. A long time ago, my parents were renovating their bathroom. And so my dad, for a few days, got like a motel room. And neither my mom nor brother ever used it, but I went there a couple of times just to like whatever, use the bathroom essentially. And even during the daytime, there's no situation in which I would answer my motel door for anyone. Are you kidding me? Absolutely
not at night.
Absolutely not at night. Definitely. So no, yeah. Cusack very rightly tells the guy like, no, what get the fuck out of here. And then immediately after, Cusack is suspicious for some reason, so that's why he breaks into that room and kills the two guys who end up being cops. In the Wikipedia page, the editor wrote, "When two random suited men become curious about Jack, he abruptly breaks into their room and kills both for no apparent reason." So apparently his hitman senses are so finely tuned that he knows this is so wrong that he just busts, he kicks the door down and murders two people with
baffling.
any sort of verification or anything. Right. If you're a really professional hitman and you're suspicious of these guys, I don't know, they do end up being
to the wall.
Right. They
Listen
end
a
up being
little bit,
cops. Isn't it worse to nonchalantly kill two cops than it is to just stay put in your room? What does he think is going to happen if he just doesn't answer the door for the rest of the night? Super weird.
Well, not in The Bag Man.
That's true. Everyone's quirky in that movie.
Yeah. So he takes the cop's briefcase from the room. So now he has two bags. He has the cop's briefcase in his bag, and he takes it back to his room. So now we cut to a scene that I would love for you to explain to me, because I wrote some stuff about this scene, and I was like, surely this will be explained in the narrative at some point. It never is. So we cut to Dragna, De Niro. He's in his office, and he's got a lady there talking to him, and they're talking about how this lady made a bad currency trade. It was she bought yen when she should have sold or shorted yen, because the Japanese government was flooding the market to try to drive down the currency price for some reason. I don't think the details really matter here. And she says that she's not a currency trader and it's not her fault that this happened. And also she panicked and accidentally hit the buy button instead of the sell button. And then he punches her in the face and sends her to a plastic surgeon to get her nose fixed. And then the scene ends and we never see her again, and we never get any detail about this currency trading dimension of Dragna's character. What is the point of this scene? Was this vindicated for you at all?
I have questions. I have comments. I don't have an explanation. Here's my question.
Okay.
This scene takes place during the daytime in Dragna's office.
This is a fair question.
So my first question is, wasn't Dragna supposed to pick up the bag from Cusack at some point during the night? Is he in a different time zone? Where were they flying to? I don't understand any of this spatially or temporally. So that really confused me.
I will say, just really quickly, I have an explanation for this, and I don't know if it's true, but it is what my explanation was. So in my mind, they are in different time zones, right? Mm-hmm. And the flight at the beginning was days apart from these events. For whatever reason, they just happened to have this conversation on the plane, and that was a discussion about a job Cusack was going to do later. And then they went back to their respective locations. I'm not saying that's true.
Right.
That's how I made it make sense to me in my head.
Okay, so that was my question. My comment here is, this film really seems to revel in violence against women. Because this is not the first, and I noted this is the first instance where we see a woman get hit in the face in this film.
Certainly won't be the last.
And and to me, I found it incredibly unpleasant because you're right. This scene feels totally pointless. I think it's just to establish Dragna as a really seedy, despicable villain. I don't know. They could have done that without us watching him punch a woman in the face. But whatever. What a film is what I wrote.
Beautiful stuff. So there you go. That 2 out of 2 mics agree. This scene doesn't matter and has no bearing on anything of importance that happens in the film. So Jack, he goes to a convenience store to get some stuff to treat his hand. And when he gets back to his room, he had left a glass of water behind the door. So if anyone opened it, he would see that the floor was wet and know that somebody'd come in, and the floor is wet, so somebody's coming. And the blue-haired call girl is in his room. She's asking for protection, and the men from whom she's asking for protection are the little person whom we discussed earlier. And also, I didn't mention him, but we've seen him. There's also a black dude with an eye patch, and these guys are I don't know, everybody in this movie is really weird, but these guys are the biggest weirdos. I find their characters completely baffling. I don't understand what the point is of these guys other than to create, I guess, some antagonist for Rivka, the blue-haired call girl, to have some reason to end up in Jack's orbit. But they're her pimps, I guess, or something. Maybe it seems I don't know. Did you understand what was happening here at all?
Well, in the Wikipedia page, the editor wrote, so the pimp, his name is Lizard. And so it says, fearful that Lizard will kill her, Rivka, for some unexplained reason, she requests that he allow her to stay. Because you're right, this setup makes no sense. She tells Cusack that she isn't a stripper, but she is dressed like a stripper. She's wearing like a shiny red corset and has a blue wig and seems to be with Lizard and the little person whose name I do not remember off the top. Guano, which is actually a pretty funny name for a goon.
It is pretty funny.
But yeah, the story doesn't make sense. She's just like, oh no, they're going to kill me. Can I stay with you? And it's like, what is this? Like, the story makes it so flimsy. We'll find out more about it later on.
Rando at a motel.
Right.
And he looks creepy. He's wearing the stupid Memphis hat and he's like walking around all suspicious and his hand is bleeding. Like, this is your guy?
Right, exactly. It does not make any sense. And even when it's explained later, it still like barely makes any sense.
Oh, beautiful stuff. So she threatens that if Jack doesn't let her stay in the room, she will go out and tell the men what's in the bag. And I also found this interesting because like later she says she didn't look in the bag, but like she did look in the bag. Like, I don't know, whatever. So Dragna calls and Jack tells Dragna that he killed the cops and that he suspects that they were on his payroll. And then the call just ends. And
it's so funny.
This is the first time that Rivka says she looked inside the briefcase. No, I think
it's not a brief.
Confused by my notes. That's right. So she says she'd looked in the bag, and now she says she also looked inside the cop's briefcase.
Yes.
She shows him what's inside, and first it seems like it's just some stuff we're not going to get to see.
The briefcase.
But then there's one thing that we do get to see, and it's a photograph of the bag, which is very funny. So they're just carrying around a briefcase just with a photograph of the bag. Like, it's so stupid. And now he asks her if she looked inside of the bag, and she says no, even though she literally just threatened to tell the freaky weirdos outside what was inside the bag like 45 seconds ago. So Guano and Lizard are out there. They're looking for her. It's just kind of interspersed with cuts of them looking. And she's helping him with his hand, helping Jack. And Guano and Lizard come to the door looking for Rivka. He denies that she's there. He calls them circus freaks. And then they have this really weird conversation where he asks her where she's from. And she says she's Israeli, but she doesn't have an Israeli accent. And he's like, no, you're not. You're not Israeli. And she's like, actually, I'm from Florida. And it's like, what is this dialogue?
It's really weird. It is not helped by the fact that she's a tall, statuesque, I think Brazilian woman.
She's Brazilian, yeah.
And she's not a good actress. You know, I'm not here to knock anyone down or whatever. You know, we're all just trying to make our way through the world.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't sound like you to knock somebody down.
No, not at all. But she doesn't. Ooh, boy. You know, it's really tough. I think because tonally, I think this film wants to be like a quirky, offbeat, whatever, neo-noir kind of crime film. But I think only De Niro and some of the supporting actors like get it. But critically, Cusack, he injects his character with no personality, and his backstory is so flimsy and thin. There's nothing. And I like John Cusack a lot, honestly. I haven't watched.
Who doesn't? He's great.
Right. I haven't watched any of his other direct to streaming like trash, but VOD trash, but I like John Cusack a lot. And like, there's only his natural charisma to try and make this character worthwhile. There's nothing else to him. He's so surly and boring. And then this actress who plays Rivka, AKA the call girl, AKA the hooker, she's not a very good actress and her story makes no sense. And their pairing also makes no sense. If you are like this hyper professional hitman played by Cusack, I don't know. I think you kick her out. Do you really want the attention of a local pimp coming after you in a motel in the middle of night when you're like doing this incredibly critically important job for a really like dangerous gangster? I don't know.
Yeah, it really doesn't make any sense. His character makes no sense.
No.
And it will only make less sense as we learn more about his character's backstory and as the ultimate twist, really strong way to describe it, is revealed. So now he gets a call from a guy named Harvey. And he talks to this guy named Harvey. I don't understand, like, this guy named Harvey. Like, what's his deal? Because it seems like his role is to be an intermediary between Jack and Dragna. But, like, Dragna just called him, like, 3 minutes ago. So clearly Dragna calls the room, but, like, he also has an intermediary to call the room sometimes. Like, I don't get this. This whole thing is, like, super, super weird. So now Jack wants to leave the room, and he says he's going to take Rivka to a bus station and give her some money to leave. She says she doesn't want to leave. He convinces her, and they leave. And I wrote, how did they get to the car without being seen by the freaks? And it really makes you wonder. Like, they were just like milling around the parking lot. They're clearly like completely committed to looking for her, and they suspect that she is in his room. How could they possibly get to the car? Like, they don't show it because there's no way to show it that would make sense. but they do somehow. We get maybe the worst dialogue in the movie right here. She's just asking all kinds of questions, and the way she's behaving is baffling. Like,
Yes.
It's like she's asking for his protection. He is like very like, against character, against reasonableness, like whatever. He is helping her, and she's still being so annoying. Like, she's like asking this like creepy weirdo who's protecting her all these personal questions about what he's doing. It's like, why are you doing this? But he says, why are you so nosy? And she responds, I'm curious. And he says, well, you know what that did to the cat.
Oh, it's really bad, man. I also noted this. I asked myself as I was watching the film, I didn't even ask, I just wrote, she asks a lot of questions to a guy who is clearly very shady. Cusack is literally a hitman. He's hanging out at some seedy motel. He has a bleeding wound, like hand wound. And she's just like asking for his life story. And it's like, lady, are you trying to get
think
snuffed
you wanna
out?
know.
Right. You don't want
Yeah.
to know any details.
You want to
don't
know
wanna
as
remember
little
his
as
face.
possible.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't even know what his hairline looks like because he's wearing that baseball cap.
Man, yep. So he kicks her out of the car because she's asking too many questions, and she kicks it out of anger, which makes the trunk that, again, per our discussion earlier, does not latch shut, open, and she sees the corpse. And now he's trying to get her to come back into the car. And then the freaks come by, and they decommission Jack somehow. I did not write down how. Doesn't matter. They kidnap Rivka, and they take the bag, and they're about to drive away, and Jack gets up, and he kills Guano, but Lizard gets away. But he comes back, I guess? Like,
What?
somehow they end up back together again?
Who, Lizard
What?
and
Go
Guano?
ahead.
Or Cusack?
Well, he killed Guano. Guano's dead. And then Lizard gets away. Like, he, like, gets in the car and drives away, but it seems like he, like, comes back, and somehow they end up in a fight again. I found this confusing, so maybe I misunderstood it. What did you think happened in this scene?
Okay, we're about to say very different things here. So at this scene, when Cusack kicks Rivka out of the car, okay, one, I have to pause and just say, I don't condone violence against women or anyone, okay? Yep. But if you are this hyper-lethal hitman played by John Cusack and a random, seemingly call girl that you just met like an hour ago who's like nosing her way into your business sees a corpse that you're storing in the trunk, don't you have to kill her?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I understand narratively why he doesn't.
Right. But like, I don't know. If he's as good at his job as De Niro claims he is, then I don't know. I think if you already have one corpse in the trunk, what's another one? But whatever. Yeah. He's like, oh no, get back in the car now. You shouldn't have kicked my trunk open and seen the corpse that I had.
Also, like, he has like a soft spot for her, but she's being so annoying.
Oh,
wouldn't your soft spot for her be reduced? Like,
yeah, she's being really annoying and nosy. So my interpretation of this, or not even interpretation, what I noted here was that Lizard and Guano, they pop out of their car and they knock Cusack out. Rivka bites Lizard and Lizard hits her. So this is the second instance that we have seeing a woman get hit in the face. And then Lizard and Guano decide to leave with Rivka, but they don't bother killing Cusack for some reason. And Guano, the little person, he pees on Cusack's head.
He does. It's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you thought that Guano was dead. He's very much alive.
Because he's going to kill him after he pees on him. I just skipped it.
Right, but then they decide
Guano
not to. They
pees
just
on
decide
Cusack,
not to.
And then they go away. And then the next thing I say happens. Cusack gets up and he kills Guano. Mm-hmm. And then Lizard drives away, but it seems like then comes back for some reason because somehow they end up having an altercation still, even though Lizard had gotten away. Did you understand like how they ended up back together? Like what happened physically in the scene? I don't know.
No, because it doesn't make any sense because Cusack drove away with Rivka. Did they only get like 10 feet away from the motel before this happened? Because Cusack ends up back at the motel.
Yeah, none of this makes any sense. So whatever. Guano's dead. There's like a final scuffle between Jack and Lizard. And finally, Jack is able to kind of push Lizard's head out of the moving car as they're approaching like a fallen tree or like a log of some kind or something. And he crushes his head. R.I.P. Lizard. Seemed like a really nice guy. Yeah, I wrote, couldn't have happened to a nicer, more normal guy. So they head back to the motel, and the proprietor's there. He's being nosy, just asking questions about whether he has a girl in the room with him, because there's a double occupancy charge if there's a second person in the room. And after he sends the proprietor away, the power turns off in his room. They're going to leave, And then sheriff's deputies come to question Jack as they found the freaks dead down the road, Lizard and Guano. And the proprietor, I feel like I missed describing something here.
Oh, I bet you did.
Yeah, I guess I did, right? I don't really understand. So explain the blocking of this scene to me, because here's what I wrote. The sheriff's deputies come to question him, and then I wrote the proprietor leaves and Cusack confronts him for being nosy and telling the deputies about him. So do the cops just leave? Do they just like believe Jack initially and they're like, oh, I guess you don't know anything, and they leave, and like that's when Jack confronts the proprietor? I don't remember what happened. Apparently I didn't write it down.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. The cops show up. And they show up to the motel and question Cusack about Lizard and Guano. And, you know, my thought here was, how could they even have, like, known? How long has it been? Half an hour? Who reported the death of, like, the local pimp in the middle of the woods? You know, it's just like who, and then
like
the
these
cops
two
knew.
Weirdos who are just milling around this like motel parking lot, just like screaming about how they can't find this blue-haired lady. Like, yeah, these guys. The cops are like really itching to like find what happened to them.
I want to note too. I have a couple of degrees of Blade here. You know, Blade, the Daywalker.
Yep.
Yeah, he's great guy. So the pimp Lizard, he's played by the rapper Sticky Fingers, Fingers with an AZ, and he played Blade in the Spike TV Blade TV show. You ever watch that?
Nope.
Neither did I. But the police chief who questions Cusack, and we see a little more later on, he's played by Dominic Purcell, who, in addition to being one of the main characters of Prison Break, he played Dracula in Blade Trinity. So we get two Blade actors here in this piece of shit movie. Thought that was pretty fun. I don't even know where you're at in the film, but let's get back to it. Let's try to get back on track.
Yeah, let's get back into it. We're far along. Like we're well over halfway through, so we're making totally fine time. So now Jack confronts the proprietor for having told the sheriff's office about him, and he reaches out and touches his wheelchair. And the proprietor gets really pissed and says no one touches his wheelchair because it belonged to his mother. So Jack goes back to the room. He talks to Rivka and tells Rivka that he used to be in a relationship with a lady. They weren't married, but they were gonna get married, and she died. And I wrote the dialogue is so bad. And Rivka, you have something you want to say about this?
Well, it's just that this is a critically important part of the plot, and you're right. The story is bad here, and crucially, Cusack feels guilty for some reason about his ex being killed, even though it seems totally disconnected from his line of work.
Yes, it's fascinating. Maybe just like projection or like transference, I guess is the way we're supposed to read it.
Yeah.
At this point, knowing what we know. Beautiful stuff. Rivka asks him about Dragna, and he's like, well, it seems like you're kind of suspicious, so what do you know about Dragna? Very snappy. And he leaves her in the room to go out and do something with the bag. He goes into the woods, he's burying it. So this scene is interspersed with some shots of a plane landing. So it appears that now Dragna is arriving, right? Like that's what I read into the interspersed shots of a plane landing. And while he's burying the bag, the hotel proprietor comes. He's not in the wheelchair anymore, so apparently he can walk. And he pulls a gun on Jack and tells him to give him the bag. And Jack gives it to him. And as he looks in the bag, Jack hits him over the head with a shovel. And as he hits him, he accidentally fires his gun, and Cusack gets hit in the hand again.
Bad luck.
I wrote that's narrative symmetry, baby. The kind of thing I'm not supposed to be thinking about during this recap.
Absolutely not.
So he hits the proprietor again with the shovel, this time killing him. So now the cops come by, the sheriff and his deputies from before. They're asking about the proprietor of the motel. They're nosing around his room just to looking for shit, and they arrest him, saying, quote, "Something's come to light since our last discussion." And here we get, I think all the music in this movie is bad, but for me, this was the low point. We get like this kind of folk song, but it's like clearly like, like a free version of folk music that they did not have to license for this film. Just like the most forgettable thing you've ever heard, that I think is supposed to convey the kind of like weighty gravitas that would normally be conveyed by like kind of dour folk music playing in this kind of movie, but it totally fails because the song is so silly. And as the cops go to see if the lady Rivka actually is there, they get into the bathroom where she's usually been hiding, and the window is open, so she's escaped through the window. So she's not there anymore.
I have things I want to say here because
All right, let's hear it. Yeah.
I'm a critical enjoyer of the arts. So
sure.
Another thing that made no sense to me in the narrative of this film. Cusack is supposedly, Agent 47 levels of incredible hitman, but there are now 4 dead people involved in this like whole situation, and the local cops know what Cusack looks like, and he goes back to the room to like keep chilling. I think that's a really bad move. And when the sheriffs or whatever, the cops arrive, they say they're looking for Ned, the clerk, the motel proprietor. And I literally wrote, LOL, why? How long has it been? Like an hour?
Right, like
and
5
sure
minutes.
enough, in the Wikipedia article for this film, the editor wrote, it is unclear who reported Ned as a missing person as he was gone for 15 minutes. Like what guy takes a slightly long lunch break or something? He's like, he's hitting his vape pen in the parking lot or something.
Shit.
He's the only one who works
too much
there.
Pizza last night at
Right. It's the middle of the night. So how could they even have known? I think it's a myth that you have to wait 24 hours to report someone is missing to the local police, but who would have reported the only person working at a like shady motel in the middle of night when most people are asleep?
Yeah, I
Makes
mean, I
no
think
sense.
it's a myth that you have to wait 24 hours to report somebody missing if you have like reason to suspect that something has happened. But it's not a myth that you have to wait 24 hours to report if you have no reason to suspect that nothing is amiss. Like that's why that rule is in place, so that somebody doesn't take a long shit for like an hour and then you call the cops and like get this like manhunt started, and it turns out they were stuck in the bathroom. And so in this situation, it wouldn't have been a myth, right? Like I think the cops would have been like, no, he probably had like 2 or 3 too many chicken wings last night, and he's got to take a wet dump. Like I don't.
Story of your life, man.
Let's give it another few hours, see if he comes back. Yeah. So anyway, the cops bring him back to their station, and they hang him up, and they're gonna beat him. So they hang him by his arms, right? They suspend him by his wrists from a load-bearing beam on the ceiling, and they're going to beat him into telling them where the bag is. So when they're getting ready to do this, the sheriff gets a call from his wife, and they're having a conversation about ice cream for some reason. This is, I think, probably the most egregious example of like the thing that you described about it just like trying to be quirky and fun. Just like none of it works. And Rivka comes to the station, and they subdue her immediately, and I guess they're gonna sexually assault her. It seems like in this scene. This is where I wrote, similar to a comment you made earlier. What a story! Really powerful stuff. This film really does like revel in like violence toward women, depicted and imagined. This guy clearly has some fucking issues. The guy who wrote this movie.
I really think that this is the most unpleasant scene we've seen in a De Niro film so far for this project. You commented a lot about the torture porn in Killing Season, and while I didn't like that, like, I don't know, whatever, it's just like cheap, gory violence. I think I can kind of desensitize myself to that a little bit, but like in this sort of wannabe quirky neo-noir, just watching in this, fluorescent police precinct, these cops about to violate this woman. One, I thought Rivka's plan made no freaking sense here, because she like, what was her plan of like just walking in?
What was
here?
her plan?
Right.
She's gonna storm the police station.
But two, there was some actual tension here, but it was so unpleasant and unfun. I was like, what is the tone here? Does this movie, is it taking itself seriously? How are we supposed to be engaging? Or is it just lurid for the sake of being able to see this woman's butt when they pull her pants off or whatever? So yeah, I was not having a good time watching this.
Yeah, it's not good. I agree. So Cusack doesn't want this to happen, so he relents and says they'll take him to the bag. And as they let him go, so they can leave to go find the bag, he kind of gets one over on them. There's a scuffle, and he and Rivka kill all the cops. They leave the cops' bodies and head out. Oh, go ahead. Mike's got something he wants to say here about this.
I have another critical question. Critical Questions with Mike Back at You is the name of the segment in this episode. So you're doing a great job. Here's my question about this scene. So they have Cusack hung up by his arms, and they say, hey, we're going to, violate this woman unless you take us to the bag. And there's like 3 cops in this precinct working the overnight shift, Dominic Purcell and 2 of his deputies. Okay, so 2 of the deputies just leave. They leave the precinct. Why? Why wouldn't they untie Cusack and put him in the car with them because they're keeping the other cop with the woman. Like they're keeping that cop in the precinct with the woman as like insurance.
Yep.
So why was Cusack still in the precinct? How is this able to transpire where Cusack is able to get one over on the cop and then Rivka is able to shoot him 5 times? Because then the other cops run back in. And it's like, you forgot the guy who was going to lead you to the bag, man.
Yeah, these are good questions. These are the questions.
And the resolution
Yep.
does not answer some of these questions.
Yep.
All yours. Keep going.
Yeah, there we go. So as Jack and Rivka are driving to the bag, so they've killed the cops and it's just them in the car, she refers to him giving the cops the bag, hypothetically, as, quote, digging it up, which reveals to Jack that she knows, where the bag is, right? She has more information than she's letting on. And I wrote, feels like maybe they've got a romance developing, but it's not the kind of prediction I'm allowed to make in this headspace. He goes to dig up the bag, and as he does, the hotel proprietor, what was his name? You said his name. What was it?
Ned. Hey, before you even get to that, I want to say I did write a prediction when Cusack and Rivka were driving again. There were 40 minutes left in the film at this point, and I was still trying to figure out, there's obviously going to be a twist. I was trying to figure out what the twist was. So I knew the basic twist. I wrote prediction. De Niro is setting them up, but I couldn't understand how it all tied together. Right. Because I wrote,
what's the setup?
I wrote, do the bag contents have something to do with the stock market? We don't know anything else about De Niro's character. So I was trying to tie it back to that scene where he punches the woman in the face and it doesn't come back to that. So it wasn't connected in any way. That was totally separate. And then I wrote, how would the cops hear about it? De Niro leak? But why set up Cusack? So I was trying to figure out, like, obviously De Niro's the bad guy here, but how are they going to neatly tie it all together? And I'm sorry, please go back to digging up the bag or whatever.
Yeah, just let me kind of preface this for everybody before we get there. We're getting there real quick.
Thank God.
The ultimate twist will be way less interesting and make far less sense than any of the things that Mike just suggested. That the twist may be. So he goes to dig up the bag, and Ned wakes up, so apparently he wasn't dead, and he grabs Jack, and he beats him to death with the shovel again. R.I.P. Jack gets the bag, he returns to the motel room, gets a call, there's nobody on the other end, tries to get Rivka to leave again, she says she doesn't want to go. I noted here, tell me if this made any sense to you, she's wearing a totally different outfit now. Where'd she get this totally different outfit? Like, she's wearing a totally different outfit in, like, this final, like, act of the movie. It is not explained.
I didn't know. I don't know if they explain it. He goes into a different room at one point. Maybe it's because of that.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
So anyway, they leave and he takes her to the bus station and it seems like he drives away, but then they're back at the bus station together and then they're picking the lock of room 14 at the motel. Like the blocking of this progression of scenes made no sense to me. Like it felt like in the span of 1 to 2 minutes, 3 like internally contradictory things were depicted on screen. And I was so disoriented. I was like, what are you still
talking
together?
about?
Is he leaving her? Like what was the point of bringing her to the bus station? He brings her to the bus station and then they're just together again. They go back to the motel room.
He didn't bring her to the bus station. They never made it to the bus station.
I saw her at a bus station.
They're back at the motel.
I think you might have missed something.
We're at the part where De Niro shows up.
I know. That's where we're ending up. But he brought her to the bus station in this like lead up to now De Niro is about to show up. You're right. So we're coming to the end. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Clearly you did not.
You're going on some tangent about I watch films in a linear fashion. Mike likes to jump from scene to scene.
They're in room 14.
Like Hayden Christensen.
Oh, we get the other funny thing in the movie. There's one other line that made me laugh. It's about to happen. So they're in room 14. It didn't make me laugh. It made me kind of smile to myself. And the door blows open and De Niro walks in and he's got a goon with him. And he says,
yeah, that's where we're at in the movie.
Yep. He says, here's the line. Tell me something, Jack. I always thought the number 13 had a 1 and then a 3 after it, but it's been a while since grade school. And the point he's making is that he instructed him to be in room 13, but he's in room 14. So he interrogates them, and this is the point where he implies that Rivka works for him. It seems like we're going to see what's in the bag, but we don't see what's in the bag. And so now the twist is revealed, right? Or at least the first part of the twist. So De Niro's character owns this whole town. everyone who's been involved tonight has been on his payroll. Ned the motel guy, the two pimps, Guano and Lizard, Rivka, the sheriff and his deputies. That's it, right? That's all the characters. I guess I just said them all.
Yeah, there are like 5 characters in this film.
Yeah, yep. So they all work for De Niro. And so this has all been this kind of scenario that he's contrived. And the point of it was to test whether Jack could be trusted. And then De Niro gives this crazy monologue about how he was almost a professor. He has a master's degree in something about international, like transnational organized crime or something like that, I think he says. And he then decided that he wanted to work as a criminal instead of study criminals. Very fascinating. And so after he gives this speech without explaining how
you are
this was meant to test.
I can't believe you wrote down literal quotes from this scene, but what convinced him, what changed his mind about his entire career path was an episode of Full House.
Yeah, I glazed right over that.
That's crazy, man. It's so,
Go
De
ahead,
Niro,
describe it.
De Niro in 2014, he's 75 years old. So I guess he was 45 when Full House was out, when it was airing originally. So when he was 45 years old, he decided to make this mid-career shift from being a professor to becoming a criminal and eventually becoming so good at it at age 45. How do you even get into that world at age 45?
Well, I mean, I think that makes a little more sense than the Full House thing, right? I think presumably while he was doing his thesis and whatever, postgraduate research he may have done, he probably met criminals, So I think that you probably would have more of an in coming from the place that he was as a formerly law-abiding person than maybe any other formerly law-abiding person would have been, other than maybe a police officer of some kind. So it kind of makes sense. The Full House thing's funny though. Thank you for that caller. So Dragna and his lackey leave, and Rivka tells Jack that she looked inside the bag, and so Jack goes out to tell Dragna that Rivka looked in the bag. And now Dragna tells him that he has to kill Rivka because she looked in the bag. And Jack doesn't want to do that because he's got a real soft spot for Rivka, as we've discussed. And so...
What did he think was going to happen?
Yeah, I don't really know. I'm not sure why he went out to tell him.
He is a professional...
what did he think the instruction was going to be?
He is a professional hitman. He should really know. You got to tie up loose ends. I know that, and I'm not a hitman.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to know that. So Rivka comes out, and this is the moment where Jack understands that he's going to have to kill her, but he doesn't want to do it. So he shoots Dragna's lackey, and as he shoots him, the shotgun that the lackey was carrying goes off, and some of the bullet spray hits Rivka in her tum.
Yeah, and
so she tells Jack that he has to go after Dragna and kill him. And I wrote here, I'm going to do today's connections. So I did the connections at this point in the movie. I think I did it perfect, if I remember correctly. So there's a really bad gunfight.
You know what I like about your recaps is sometimes it feels like I'm getting a look inside the head of an untreated schizophrenic. It's really fun. It's really...
Just what I do and don't notice.
Yeah, exactly. I did the connections, and I wrote a De Niro quote, and then forgot where I was in the movie, the narrative.
Well, you have to remember that my notes. You want to see them? This is your chance.
I don't give a shit. Oh my god. Yeah, fine. Yeah. You wrote so much, and you still get lost. Oh my god, that's wild, man.
So anyway. There's this gunfight in the woods. This is one of the worst shot and edited scenes in any movie we've seen for this podcast.
Yep.
It may be the worst. It makes that final climactic scene from Savage Salvation look like something from Apocalypse Now. The incompetence of this scene. So none of it makes any sense. It's also has very bad sound design. It's an incredible
cheap.
scene. Nothing that happens makes any sense, but the way that it ends up is Jack wins the scuffle and he shoots Dragna. And so now we're going to find out what's in the bag. So Dragna gives his I'm the bad guy speech and says hey, who do you think you're dealing with here? I know Rivka's back at the hotel, and she knows what's in the bag, and nobody can know. So I've rigged the whole motel with C4, and if you don't give in to what I want, I'm going to press the button on the C4 detonator remote, and I'm going to blow her up. And so he wants him to look at what's in the bag, and he does, and it's his dead fiance's head. And so you will recall that earlier in the recap, he explained that he had been gonna marry a woman, but she died. And so it turns out De Niro killed her. And so this is the twist. The twist is that Jack is such a good hitman that earlier in their respective careers, Jack's and Dragna's, when they were working together, Dragna became so dependent on Jack's killing skill, but it seemed like this lady he was going to marry might try to like turn him away from his life of crime and stop him from serving Dragna. And so he killed her to prevent that from happening. And so the whole point of this night has been that now he has like a more serious job he needs Jack to do for him, a job that he needs to know he can trust him completely for. And he knows that if Jack had looked at what was in the bag, he wouldn't have been able to hide it from him because it would have been too emotional about what it was. And so this was the way to test, beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether he could trust Jack not to look in the bag, because he wouldn't be able to lie to him and tell him that he hadn't. If he knew, he would obviously try to kill him. And so he's passed the test, but now he's failed the test. I don't really understand like why he showed him what was in the bag, honestly. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. I feel like it kind of invalidates the purpose of the test. Did you understand like the character's motivation here?
I think it makes no sense, because as a dramatic reveal, sure, very dramatic. I mean, De Niro set this whole thing up because he killed Cusack. First of all, I think this is where I don't think you noticed this sort of thing. I suspect, but there was the like worst instance of ADR that I have noticed in any De Niro film so far for this project. That's the kind of
thing that I noticed now. Yep.
I'm gonna drop it right here.
Absolutely unique. Your word is your bond.
Your fiance
was taking you away from me. I couldn't allow that.
But basically, De Niro says something he's like monologuing, raving at Cusack, and says something about, like, he says your fiance, but the words your fiance are so clearly from a different like voice recording session than the rest of what he's saying, and it's really noticeable. So I'm going to throw it here one more time.
Your word is your bond.
Your fiance
was taking you away from me.
So there's that. So De Niro killed Cusack's fiance because he was afraid that Cusack would retire like John Wick at the beginning of the first John Wick. But
great movie.
Then he sets up this entire test. But here's my question about it. Here's my real question about it, because I'm such a critical movie watcher. The bag is like a leather duffel bag, classy. But when Cusack opens the bag, the dead fiance's head is just in there, looking right at him. Right.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you notice a head-shaped object rolling around in the bag, or maybe feel it at some point? It's just rolling around in there. It's not like in a box or anything.
Also, the head isn't like mummified or anything. It looked like maybe it had been recently in a freezer. So like it would have defrosted by this point. And to your point, it's just a leather bag. Like leather, it's not the most porous material, but it's porous, like I think you'd have some juices and some smells kind of leaching through the bag. It's like it wasn't mummified. It wasn't preserved in any way.
There's there's going to be a smell.
Think of the smell. You haven't thought of the smell, you bitch.
And you're right, because I have a small duffel bag that I use for the gym, and I don't know, you could feel that there's a water bottle in there when I'm like walking into the gym. It's not that thick. You would notice a head tumbling around. You'd be like, it's not a bowling ball. Well, what could it be? Kind of feels like a head.
and you'd think he'd know about like human anatomy, right? Because he's like a professional killer. Like he would kind of know what a human head feels like, maybe better than another person would.
Why does my bag smell so bad?
So whatever. This happens. None of it makes any sense. But Jack shoots Dragna to death. And seems like Rivka's going to be all right. Jack throws his fiance's head into a puddle. We have another really bad dialogue here that I wrote down. He says to her, "You are one tough Hebrew," as a reference to her assertion she was Israeli earlier. And she responds, "You have no idea." And I opined, this dialogue is unreal. So then we get a flashback, and it is Dragna meeting with Rivka in his office, and he tells her that if he gets killed, Dragna, he wants her to kill Jack, and then she has to give Dragna's attorney proof that she's killed Jack, and she'll get, I can't remember, some millions of dollars, like $5 million. I think it was. Yep. And so she goes to the attorney's office, and she intimidates the attorney, and he does not ask for the proof, and he gives her a bunch of gold and cash, and it turns out she hasn't killed Jack. They're back together. It's got a happy ending, but he's still got the same shitty car that doesn't have a trunk that closes. And that is The Bagman.
A couple of closing thoughts here. One, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. They drive off happily ever after, and I thought that car is like, it's like a POS, piece of junk from the early 70s. Right.
Yeah.
Like I assumed that was like a burner car that he picked up for that job specifically. He's still driving
that's his
it.
car, man.
Did he become emotionally attached to it? He's like, I know that I'm like number one on the FBI's most wanted list right now. So I just thought like, wow, Cusack would definitely be at like number one on that list. He's killed. He's responsible for the deaths of 3 cops, Crispin Glover, Robert De Niro, obviously like a very prominent person in whatever his local community is. The fact that he's still driving that car is really funny. I'll just say that the way that I closed my notes here, I wrote, I spent $4 on this rental.
So Mike, what do you give The Bagman?
This movie is bad, and I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. It's definitely, it is low. It is low. It's a low tier movie. I think it's a Tarantino knockoff. It wants to be mysterious and quirky, but it also wants to be kind of hard boiled and, this seedy neo-noir. And it just kind of fails spectacularly at everything. Cusack's character is really underwritten. The female lead, the actress who plays Rivka, is not a very talented actress. De Niro is the best. He's the bright spot of this movie, but he's only in it for 5 minutes. So there's really nothing here. A movie like this, I think really succeeds. It succeeds on having a witty script, and the characters, the motley crew of supporting characters that populate this world need to be endearing or interesting or funny in some way. And I did not enjoy any of the time that I spent with Lizard, Guano, and Ned. So it really did not do it for me. So much of this film is just Cusack and Rivka driving and talking and having really boring conversations that kind of feel like they're going nowhere. And then they just end up back at the motel anyways. So what was the point of any of them? What about you, Mike? What do you give The Bagman?
I too give it 1.5 stars.
Beautiful.
I didn't like it, but I feel like we've created the mold, right? With Killing Season. Like I think now we know Killing Season it's like at the bottom, right, of our kind of rating scale, and I hated it, but it certainly is nowhere near as bad as Killing Season. So I don't know what I could possibly add. It's exceptionally bad. Everything about it is bad. It's technically bad. The characters are not compelling. The only actor who's doing a good job in it is De Niro, and I think that's probably more than 5 minutes, but it definitely wasn't more than 10. He's hardly in it at all. And thematically, it makes no sense. Like, part of the twist is foreshadowed, right? Like the fact that everybody's on De Niro's payroll is it's foreshadowed to the point that it's obvious because nothing else could possibly explain how contrived everything is. It's so stupid.
That final flashback where we fill in the details about Rivka's association with Dragna, it doesn't matter. She obviously was on his payroll. She knew too much at every turn. It makes Cusack seem even more stupid that he kept sticking with her throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
So it's not a really fun, in Lucky Number 11, which isn't my recommendation, but in a film like that, when you learn when you see the final flashback, it's it fills in all the missing details, and it makes you want to rewatch the film because you can pick up on those things. But here, it's very obvious that there is a connection, and it doesn't actually make the film more interesting in retrospect.
Right, because they couldn't reveal it in any way that would be informative.
Right.
You already knew. It's quite the opposite, where if you'd gotten to the end and they hadn't shown that flashback, it would have been bad. But it doesn't make the movie good that the flashback exists. Yeah, it's terrible. So I also give it 1.5 stars. And I wouldn't watch it if I were you. So don't. This podcast is shorter and better than the film. So there you go. Do you have any films to recommend? A film or films to recommend?
Yeah, I think just one film, man. I don't know why anyone on this podcast ever recommends more than one film. I feel like I'm so clear
I have
when
two,
I say
actually.
film.
One's kind of like a jokey recommendation, and the other one's my
okay.
real recommendation. Yeah,
Great. I'm excited for the real one. Yes, I'm recommending the 2009 Werner Herzog film, Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. You ever watch this film?
No, never have.
It's been a very long time since I've watched it, but I love Werner Herzog. He's one of the GOATs, incredible guy. This is essentially a post-ironic, like black comedy cop drama starring Nicolas Cage as the titular bad lieutenant. Basically, it takes place shortly after Hurricane Katrina. Nick Cage plays a cop who's injured during an act of heroism during Katrina, and so he becomes addicted to painkillers, and he's just this corrupt cop that we get to watch for 2 hours. So it's like a redemption story. It's offbeat in a way that I think this film aspired to be The Bagman, but failed spectacularly. But Werner Herzog knows what he's doing, and so it's able to very deftly ride this line between, serious and campy, ironic, etc. Nick Cage is fantastic in it. It co-stars Eva Mendes. She's great too. I don't remember it very well, but critically, my memories of it are positive. Roger Ebert gave it a perfect 4 out of 4 in his original review back in 2009. And I did see a very pithy Letterboxd review by the user Fovujono, who wrote, "Buddy cop movie, you're the buddy, where you get to sit and hang out with cracked out Nick Cage for 2 hours. So if that sounds like a good time to you, then might I recommend Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans."
Beautiful recommendation. Thank you so much.
What about you? You're welcome.
yeah.
What are your two?
So here's my two, right? One is not really a recommendation, although it's a great movie, so you can watch it if you've never seen it. But my first recommendation, in air quotes, is just Gross Point Blank, the 1997 John Cusack film, because I couldn't help but feel while I was watching this that they watched Gross Point Blank. And they were like, yeah, John Cusack, he's handsome, he's charming. He played a hitman really effectively in this kind of like quirky, dark comedy. And maybe we too could bottle John Cusack's charisma and turn something that isn't funny, contract killing, into something a little bit more lively and entertaining. And they failed. So if you want to see John Cusack as a hitman and you've never seen Gross Point Blank, you should watch it because it's a really nice film. My actual recommendation that I think makes a slightly more serious allusion from this is the 2011 film Drive, starring Ryan Gosling.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I love it. I went and checked. You and me both gave it 4.5 stars. And the sort of thematic and DNA overlap that I see between these films is like they are both meant to depict a kind of thinly sketched, criminal of some kind protagonist who seems to have a kind of past about which he has regrets and seems to have a soft spot for a woman based on some sin they perceive in their past. But it's really just amazing like how much more effective Drive is at making Ryan Gosling's character, who, by the way, is unnamed, which I think helps. He's just the driver in the script and no one ever says his name, making him interesting. You wonder about him. His odd concern for Carey Mulligan's character is compelling because of how thinly sketched he is, rather than baffling as it is in The Bagman. And I don't really want to say too much more about it, honestly, because if you've never seen Drive, it's awesome. It's got a really cool kind of acid housey soundtrack, kind of weird music. And Ryan Gosling is incredible in it. God, he's one of the best actors of the modern era for sure. He's so good. I love Drive. You should check it out.
It's a good recommendation.
Yep, there you go. What a film we had this week. And now it is time to roll for next week. Mike, are you ready?
I'm ready. I hope we get something better than the last couple of films. Are you ready?
I'm just still hoping for Silver Linings Playbook.
All right. Let's both wish for it really hard.
Because you'll be so excited to watch it after these last couple of films.
I might give it 5 stars.
A mediocre one. This is the time for it to show up.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Let's go ahead and roll the dice. I got 44. 44 is the 1996 film The Fan, directed by Tony Scott. Okay.
Okay.
I do love me some Tony Scott.
Okay.
This is a American sports psychological thriller film starring Robert De Niro and Wesley Snipes, Passenger 57 himself. Wow. The film received generally negative reviews from critics and was a box office flop.
It's got a 36 or 37 on the old RT, so.
Well, listen, I'll take what I can get. Tony Scott, you are missed.
I mean, listen, it's got to be better than these past couple things, so.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. Okay. Well, we'll be back at you with the fan, I guess.
And there we go. So I guess for next week, we will be watching The Fan. Really excited about that. Mike, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we end today's episode?
No, I think we should end it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. I would like to thank my wife, Caroline, a.k.a. Bad Cree, for our podcast art. I would like to thank you, our loyal listeners and residents, citizens of De Niro Nation, for sticking with us all these weeks. And I would like to invite you to follow Mike and I on Letterboxd. Mike is Mike Back At You, and I am Mike the Fab. And please email us your questions and comments, live show rules, of course, at ourherodeniro@gmail.com. And I would encourage you to give us a follow and rate us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever your podcast app is of choice. So there you go. That was The Bagman. Happy that you joined us this week and looking forward to The Fan next week. Hope everybody has a nice Tuesday. Bye, everybody.
See you next time.